Dark Tranquillity with their brand new album Atoma for here in 2016, and here's a group that has always kind of felt like their feet were firmly planted with the flag held high for melodic death metal ever since they kind of helped trailblaze this movement back in the early portion of the 1990s. Here's a group that always felt like whenever they deviated from their core sound even just a little bit, it didn't so much feel like a changeover of identity, but rather just a short-lived vacation or a real experiment to see what they could do with what they already had established. This is a group whose most recent outputs have still seen some of the same levels of praise that some of their earliest works have been able to deliver, works that are now considered by many in the melodic death metal field as absolutely legendary. Whereas other bands have decided to stray from the path, whether it be permanently or just for a little while, Dark Tranquillity has always felt kind of constant. Now with Atoma, this 12-track affair with these, typically this is a band that has more simplified album covers, at least recently, and then we have this that's kind of interesting. Now the DT that you see debuted with their last album, so this is a little bit different. What does the album hold? Are we to expect what we've expected from Dark Tranquillity all this time, which is essentially the reason why melodic death metal exists? Well, let's take a look. This is a 12-track affair. This is one where none of the tracks go really above the 4-minute and 30-second mark. So already we're off to a start of consistency, one that's going to hover within the same range. Now, there are some albums where this is a problem, where it actually holds an album back. It definitely seems like a band is sort of cornerstoned a little bit of a writing niche, as opposed to going above and beyond the call of duty. But Dark Tranquillity is one band that certainly has changed it up in the past. It's just kind of where they're at right now as a band. They've been doing this for quite some time. I think we should just trust them. Now, whenever we get into Encircled and into the title track, which starts off this album, we are greeted with that sort of mid-tempo, high energy that melodic death metal has become associated with, especially Dark Tranquillity. These are songs that have that strong, gruff, growly-style vocal that is then interwoven with, the guitar work that you hear solidified further with the percussion and the keys. That might seem like it's a bit Music 101. This is all of the different portions of the song. But whenever you add in that signature charm of Dark Tranquillity and that signature charm that has become sort of one and the same with the melodic death metal register, then this is something that makes all the sense in the world. The pacing is something that sort of goes in between that mid-range and a little bit more aggression, something that's geared toward really trying to gallop its way through, but doing so at a faster pace, almost as though the horse is trying to run a goddamn marathon. Not grindcore fast, nowhere close, but faster than that mid-tempo that you're traditionally associated with. Going in the forward momentum, neutrality, and really the middle portion of this album, it is definitely more of the same. You do get little creative spikes here and there where there's a riff that has a more catchy idealistic to it. Either that or a riff that has a little bit more bite. And really these are vocals that are staying and hovering within the same range, with cleans being sputtered within here and there. You're starting to encounter one of the real problems that Atoma does suffer from, and it's the fact that this is all, above average material, but nothing is really sticking out at you. Nothing is really feeling like a true bona fide contender for Song of the Album. Everything really just feels like it's solid enough to get by, and it's consistent, and its flow is very well decorated. It's something that keeps you very much feeling, in tune with the album, while also not feeling like you have anything to really hold all of your chips with. Instead, you're kind of just distributing them here and there with each track on the disc. Now this is where philosophies will certainly be different. Some people will say that that's a good thing, considering every song is competent, and that means that there's no real duds. I agree with that sentiment. But then there's the other side that says, well, that's not a good thing, because nothing's jutting out at you. Everything just feels average. There's nothing that really has that high-pitched, holy shit, headbang with the horns up moment. And I kind of agree with that too. This is an album that is filled with really just the memory of the fact that it's a solid disc. Really, whenever it comes to the champion for me, though, it's Our Proof of Life, which is getting a little bit deeper into the album with track number 8. This is one that does feel a little conceptually different. It's one that has a little bit of a slower moment that builds into the mellow death that we're used to with Dark Tranquillity. We have a solo in here that's very well tailored. Everything seems to bite in a little bit of a different way. Consider that you're listening to, say, a Children of Bodom album, and all of a sudden, you go from an Alexi Leo solo that's trailblazing for 4 minutes and just kind of making your head spin to something that's slow, that builds up atmosphere and really grants a little bit of a reprieve while also spellbinding you in the process, and you kind of get a glimpse of what our Proof of Life kind of feels like. It's one of those shimmering different moments that occur on albums that give it a little bit of extra bona fide charm. Clearing Skies actually has a bit of a similar register to it, although handled in a bit of a different way. That duality of songs is definitely a nice touch. When the World Screams, Merciless Fate rather, and Caves and Embers finish this one up and still deliver that nice charm. So overall, we have a bit of a problem here, and that's the fact that Dark Tranquillity has somehow given us an album that is filled with enough of the traditional ideas that this band presents to really satisfy us, but it's given us very little to be truly magnificently excited about. Really, the only thing that really draws any excitement for me about this album is that Dark Tranquillity is still a kick-ass band. They're still a group that's releasing material that feels like it has a lot of heart and soul behind it. It's definitely not something that feels like a band just going through the motions. Either that or just doing it for a paycheck. They're still writing competent material, it just might not be as poignant as it once was. It doesn't feel quite as groundbreaking. And perhaps that's something that comes with age. It's really hard to really say. But this is an album that's about an 83 out of 100. It's got great riffs, it's got a fantastic flow to it. There are many things that this album does right. The main problem that I at least have felt, and you might feel very differently about this, don't get me wrong, and if you do, that's great. That's fine. I'm glad you got more out of this album, is that it just doesn't have as much memory. If I walk away from this album, I'm not going to remember much in a couple of hours. If I walk away from this album for a couple of days, I might barely remember some of the song titles. It's just one that feels like it exists in space. But it's a good existence. Almost like you hover up into the stratosphere or into the universe itself, you find a neat looking star, there's nothing really all that special about it, but you just think it's neat. That's kind of what this album is. It's just kind of neat, even though there's not much purpose to it. I want to know what you guys think about Atoma by Dark Tranquillity. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I'll talk to each and every one of you guys next time. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to know how I felt about the last Dark Tranquillity album, check out the link to your left. If you want to know how I feel about other albums from 2016, check out the link to your right. You can subscribe to the channel and also scope out my Patreon. Thanks once again for viewing and have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you next time.